and point out what they are, so we can know what are the differences and what are the originals. And that's what a textual critic does.
This is Pennsylvania Inside Out. I'm Patty Satalia, and our guest today is a New Testament expert. He's chair of the Department of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, a best-selling author, and an agnostic. Some say he peered so hard into the origins of Christianity that he lost his faith. We're talking with him about two of his books, the New York Times bestseller Misquoting Jesus, the story behind who changed the Bible and why, and Truth and Fiction in the Da Vinci Code. A historian reveals what we really know about Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Constantine. Let's talk a little bit about the Da Vinci Code, which of course is a worldwide bestseller, translated into 44 languages. I believe there's something in the neighborhood of 60.5 million copies out there, so this is something that has caught the attention of people worldwide. The premise of this book is that there's a conspiracy within the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican knows it's living a lie, but it continues to do so to keep itself in power. What do you think of the basic premise of that book?
I think it's a brilliant premise if you want to sell books, and I think if what you're looking for in a book is a good murder mystery that's a real page turner that has a Vatican cover-up, this is a formula for success, and it obviously succeeded quite well. And so I actually liked it as a novel. I don't like it in terms of its literary style. I mean, if you want a literary stylist, read Jane Austen. Don't read Dan Brown. But as a page-turning novel of the beach, I think it's very good. The problem with the novel is that it's based on historical claims, and the difficulty is that virtually all of the historical claims in the novel are wrong. And so, which is okay because it's a novel, but the problem is that Dan Brown begins the novel with a statement of fact where he lists a number of things that he claims are historically accurate. And he says in this list of facts, he says that all descriptions of artwork, architecture, sacred ritual, and documents are accurate. Well, it's simply not true, and it's not clear if Dan Brown doesn't know it's not true, or whether he simply just made mistakes.
Do most people who read Dan Brown's book and who saw the movie based on that book, do they look at it as history or do they look at it as a fiction?
I am surprised, going around the country giving talks on the Da Vinci Code, which is about the only thing I talked about for about a year, going around to audiences where people really were misinformed about some rather crucial things. I mean, there's the controversial issue about whether Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and it's not that people are reading that and taking that as historical fact, but they are wondering about it. Could it be fact? But things like the idea that the Emperor Constantine called the Council of Nicaea, and there was a vote there to decide whether Jesus was the Son of God or not. That sounds plausible to people. Well, it's absolutely wrong. Or the idea that at the Council of Nicaea they decided which books would be included in the New Testament. Absolutely wrong. And other things that are in the book. For example, that you can find some of the Gospels, some of the lost Gospels, were discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Absolutely wrong. And so you can just go point by point by point by point through this thing and show that there are just these historical errors. So what I tell my students at Chapel Hill is that if they want to learn about the history of the Middle Ages, the way to do that is not to watch Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail. And if you want to know about the history of early Christianity, you don't do it by reading Dan Brown.
In fact, you've told your students in class that it's not enough just to believe what your parents believed. Blind faith just doesn't work, which many people think the foundation of religion is a certain degree of blind faith.
Well, I think that religion is based on faith, but I don't think faith has to be blind, and I don't think that it has to be irrational or unintelligent. I think you can have an intelligent faith which questions the premises of your belief without necessarily threatening your belief. You could continue to believe, but be an intelligent believer who asks good questions and looks for hard answers rather than simply accepting what everybody's already told you. I mean, if everybody accepted simply what everybody told them, then everybody would, I mean, where would we be as a world?
We'd all be the same religion, probably.
Right. And there'd be no need for universities any longer. So that, for me, teaching religion about religion in a university is an ideal situation because students come in with ideas about religion, and these get challenged, and so it forces them to think. I think that's a good thing.
It's probably what you've written a lot about probably makes people very uncomfortable, and I'm wondering if people are able to separate the message from the messenger?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some people are better at that than others. I sometimes get hate mail. It's interesting that the most hate mail I've gotten over the last couple of years hasn't been about the Gospel of Judas that I was involved with the publication of, or some of the other, or misquoting Jesus. Most people have gotten upset really because of particular stands that I take on the inspiration of the Bible. So my view about the inspiration of the Bible is that the Bible has to be treated like any other book is treated, because it's a book. And so if you're going to read a book, then you should read it as a book. And you shouldn't prejudge the issue about what kind of book it is, any more than you prejudge any book. You read the book and you see what's in the book, and then you evaluate it with your intelligence. And I think doing that, I think the Bible is the classic of religious literature. I mean, it is the, for good reason, it's the best-selling book of all time. But the Bible needs to be read carefully, and people need to read it critically. Otherwise, people simply use the Bible to support whatever their own particular points of view are, and I don't think that's very helpful.
In fact, critics say they should read your book, but read your work balanced against other religious scholars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You shouldn't take anybody's word for it, even mine.
Now, there have been several books that debunk Dan Brown's enormously popular The Da Vinci Code, but most of them have been evangelicals who have been worried that his work would lead people astray.
Yes.
What's your motivation?
Well, it's not that. I think you do get a lot of evangelicals for whom that's a concern, and you actually get a lot of Roman Catholics who have the same concern, that their co-religionists will be led astray. That's not my interest, because I don't have a religious commitment that is involved with this. My problem is that I think history is really important. I think we really need to know what happened in the past. And anytime people misunderstand the past, it affects the way they understand the present and probably what they're going to do in the future. I think that certain things matter about the past. I mean, it really matters that there was a Holocaust, even though some people want to deny it. It matters whether there were weapons of mass destruction discovered in Iraq. Things about the past matter. It matters who Jesus was. He's the most important person in the history of civilization. We ought to know who he really was. And so I think it's very important for people to know history, and so I wrote my book on the Da Vinci Code as a way of getting back to very important historical issues concerning Jesus and the New Testament and so forth.
Now, you talk about the New Testament as being copies of copies of copies, translated over lots and lots of years, but how does it compare to the Muslim Quran or the Jewish Torah? How does it compare in terms of accuracy?
Well, I'm not an expert on either the Quran or the Torah or all of the Jewish scriptures. What I will say is that in the ancient world, everybody had the same problem, which was that there wasn't desktop publishing, and you couldn't publish anything electronically, and you didn't even have Xerox machines. You didn't have carbon paper. The only way to get a book reproduced in the ancient world was by copying it by hand, one page, one sentence, one word at a time. And until there were tight controls over that, people made mistakes. Now, eventually in Islam and in Judaism, in the Middle Ages at least, there were tight controls over how scribes reproduced things. But there weren't tight controls early on in either religion, and there certainly weren't tight controls in Christianity. So when you look at the earliest manuscripts of Christianity, the scriptures of Christianity, and compare them with one another, there are mistakes all over the place. You know there are mistakes because you can compare two manuscripts and they differ from one another. And so you have this problem that people are changing their text, and then the question is, what's the original text? What got changed? And it actually is a big problem with the Hebrew Bible. It's as big of a problem as it is with the New Testament, with the one difference being that the Hebrew Bible doesn't have very many manuscripts, whereas the New Testament has thousands of manuscripts.
And on that note, unfortunately, we are out of time.
Yes.
Our thanks very much to Professor Bart Ehrman of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for talking with us today, and to you for tuning in. If you have comments about this program or have story ideas you'd like to share with us, you can reach us via email at pennsylvaniainsideout.psu.edu or by U.S. mail at 227 Outreach Building, University Park, Pennsylvania, 16802. For all of us here at WPSU, I'm Patty Satalia. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at Media Sales.